we're going to analyze the Amorphous story trailer, and I have a feeling this is going to be a long video. Oh boy. Well, firstly, in the beginning of the trailer, we get an introduction to our world, a world of pure chaos, until the gods descended and then gave us the core flame to the people. And then 12 titans were born from that flame. Now, in Greek mythology, there are 12 titans that were born from Uranus, who represents the sky, and Gaia, who represents the earth. In the trailer, the very first titan we see is holding a giant rock, so I'm assuming this guy is supposed to be Atlas. However, Atlas is not one of the initial 12 titans, but he is sometimes referred to as a titan. Here we see a landscape of a city. We have mountains in the back. We have a creepy looking sun, and it is bright outside. We have what I assume would be Greek architecture. However, if we take a look at Greek architecture, usually it consists of tall columns, whereas Roman architecture has more arcs in it. But it's a minor detail. Over here we see what I believe to be the core flame, but it could also be simply a representation of it, and the core flame could be something a little bit more grander. We have people being happy, drinking, playing music, and we see some vases in the background here. Greek mythology had a golden age. It occurred after Kronos, one of the titans, killed Uranus and ruled the cosmos during this age. It is called the Golden Age because Gaia provided free food stamps, people didn't have to work, there were no wars, there was no immorality, and the people were relatively happy. Kronos represents time, which isn't always depicted as a good thing, because as time marches forward, it inevitably leads to death. Before Kronos ruled, the world was ruled by chaos, where death happens at any point. But with Kronos, it doesn't happen at any point. Rather, it slowly moves towards death. Kronos knew that his rule would eventually end, so he tried to prevent that from happening by eating his children to suspend time somehow. But this didn't work, as his rule with time also created fate or destiny, which even he himself could not stop. He himself cannot stop fate or destiny. One of his children, Zeus, survived, which started a 10-year war between the newer gods, including Zeus, and the older gods, the Titans. Eventually Zeus wins, and in some stories, his father Kronos is exiled and then is now tasked with ruling the Elysian fields, which is heaven. In the trailer, the Golden Age ends with a black dye covering the sky, and it drives the Titans mad, and then without all the food stamps coming in, the mortals then fought against one another. The sun turns itself off, and then the trailer mentions that the war between the mortals and the Titans after a millennia left a shattered world. Now, I'm not sure if this means that the war between the Titans is over and they killed the Titans. I don't know. But either way, it is followed by an age of darkness. They mentioned that the core flame is dimming, so it is probably still a light. Then we see an eclipse of something that covers what I assume is the sun, and we also see a big hand. They mention golden blood drips to the ground as it is a prophecy. I think what we're seeing here is Nanook. We have the black sphere, and we even have the mentioning of the golden blood. The gold liquid you see in the nuke here is actually his golden blood. So after the activation of the core flame, time, destiny, fate was set in motion, and it was simply inevitable that Elio's script would come to be true, and that Nanook, or one of his cronies, the Lord Ravagers, would come by and destroy a Morpheus. We then see Aglaea, who is a golden weaver. In Greek mythology, Aglaea is one of the three charities, who are goddesses of charm and beauty, who are usually said to be the children of Zeus. Aglaea represents radiance and beauty and gorgeous and waifu. Euphrosyne represents elation, and Talia represents abundance. Oh boy. I looked at some literature of Aglaea, and I think this quote is the only quote that matters to me. It is from Theogony, written by Hesiod, and it says, "And Hephaestus, the famous lame one, made Aglaea, youngest of the Charites, his buxom wife." I mean, if that is not the definition of a waifu, I don't know what is the definition of a waifu, okay? In the trailer, they say she must gently caress the holy city's silk and web and hearken to the sounds and voices of destiny. I believe they are saying that she can weave fate, and if we go to the planet, it will very likely be in the holy city. Now, I'm pretty sure the mythological Aglaea is never described as weaving fate, but it is artistic liberty, so that's fine. The next character we see is Tribi, who is said to be a free-faced messenger that traverses through myriad doors bearing tidings to you from hundreds of worlds. So, she can either travel through dimensions like dirty deeds done dirt cheap, probably not. I think it's more likely that she can teleport with doors between what I think would be 3 worlds. Each one might represent a specific aeon. Now, we do see 3 separate people. In her picture, we see 2 dolls, and she is referred to as the messenger, so instead of being 3 separate people, I think she is more like Herda, where she has a couple puppets, but she also has a real form. She could also be a reference to Hecate, who is usually depicted with 3 heads representing the past, present, and the future. However, Hecate, who is initially depicted as benevolent, with the keys to unlock the gates between realms, she is also sometimes associated with witchcraft. So the question is, does she float like a duck? The next character we see is Anaxa, who is referred to as a fool with enough knowledge to refute faith and stir up a torrent capable of slaying gods. In the image, his description says, "The scholar inquires about the prophecy and disrespects the gods." This guy is kind of confusing. But I think since we know there are multiple aeons in Amorphous, probably 3, one of them is probably Remembrance and is considered the good guys by most people. He probably believes all of the aeons, including Remembrance, are a scam and has evidence of it, so people call him a fool. I think that's the situation. Also, Anaxa could be a reference to the Greek philosopher Anaxagoras, who believed that nous, or the mind, is the governing principle behind the cosmos, and he held many materialistic views of the world, such as the sun being a fiery rock, which led to him being sentenced to death, which he survived. He also was correct about his hypothesis about what causes an eclipse. And we saw an eclipse in the trailer. Maybe he knows something about that nobody else does. Maybe. The next character we see is a pink-haired waifu with a cute little pouch called Hyacinth, who severs dawn from dusk, and the image says, "The priest heals the sky and rebuilds the mystical realm." She could be a reference to Hyacinth, the hero, but I see 2 problems with that. Firstly, he's a man, and secondly, he is killed out of jealousy because he was too hot. This game is made in China and not San Francisco, so she will not turn out to be a man, and she's not dying. The dawn from dusk thing is interesting. The goddess in Greek mythology who opens the gates so that Helios, the sun, can ride his chariot across the sky each day is called Eos. Eos is known for chronic fornication with the mortals. The next character, Deimos, is referred to as Undying, and pierces the enemy's king with Kremnos' blood. His image says, "The heir apparent pursues strife and bathes in blood for the rightful crown." This guy gotta be a reference to Deimos, who represents the feeling of terror in battle. Deimos is the son of the war god Ares and accompanies Ares in combat. So his technique will likely be making the enemies frozen in fear. Now, some people think this guy looks like Gilgamesh. He looks very similar in appearance to Gilgamesh. And Gilgamesh is arrogant and believes that he is the rightful king of this world, which is possibly what Deimos is trying to achieve. So the similarities are extremely apparent, and initially I thought that had to be Gilgamesh, but I have an issue with that. I assume they wrote the general idea of the story before the Fate collab, so I don't think they'd shove Gilgamesh into the story. I don't think they'd do that. I think what's more likely to be the case is the Fate Stay collab characters are going to show up on 3.4, 3.5, 3.6 after like the main story is done. And they might have some relevance to these characters, but I don't think they're going to be these actual characters. I don't think that's the case. And a naked man with his chest visible, with tattoos, and armor, and a red aura is not really that uncommon for a warrior type character, okay? Like if he was like a guy on a pink donkey, like I'd be like, this is exactly the guy on the pink donkey. But he's not. He's a relatively common warrior looking like guy, okay? It could be Gilgamesh, but I don't think so. Next we have Cypher, the fleet-footed, who commands the frozen time to once again flow. Now, some people will say this character resembles Partophelis of the Fire Moths, the Flame Chasers from Honkai Impact 3rd. She is quick and often steals from people, so I think that's possible. But most importantly is the frozen in time part. Is the entirety of Amorphous frozen in time? That could make sense to me if the core flame started both time, fate, and destiny, which will result in the inevitable death of Amorphous. So something froze time, Dio probably, which meant the world has stopped progressing towards destruction, and they are now trying to figure out a way to save the world, to weave fate and move it from the path towards destruction to a new path towards life. So I don't know why this cat girl has the ability to restore time. That seems like a broken ability for a random ass cat girl, okay? I think in Amorphous, the puzzles, they're gonna have to have something to do with space and time. Gotta be the case. The next character is Amphoreus. I don't know if I'm saying that right. She is the daughter of River Styx, which in Greek mythology is a goddess and also one of the underworld rivers. And they say, if you grant her the right to embrace, then even frozen death will sleep peacefully at her fingertips. In the trailer, she turns a dragon into a skeleton, and then turns the skeleton into ashes. So obviously she is gonna power creep Acheron. I believe she has the ability to kill things that other people cannot kill. In Greek mythology, there is someone named Castor, but he's got nothing to do with Styx. Styx does have a few children, and weirdly enough, I think the closest thing to Amphoreus is Kratos, who personifies strength. Amphoreus kills the dragon with a touch, so I think that represents strength very well. I expect her character to be mostly emotionless or pretty serious, and believes in kill first, ask questions later. The next character I don't believe is named, and the trailer says, you will hear the sounds of the ocean's abyss reverberating through the storm. Made in abyss, reverberating stone? Coincidence? I don't think so. I'm just kidding. There's probably an ocean in this world. The storm probably represents what's going on right now with the frozen time thing. And hearing the sounds of the oceans reverberating through the storm might be saying the solution to the storm is in the ocean, and this person that is not named might be involved in that. Who knows? Next, the trailer talks about visitors from outer space visiting to see the destruction, and then they mention that the titans of old have all fallen, so maybe we won't be seeing any titans. We then get a mention of a nameless new king that takes the throne. We have an upside-down chessboard with a hand moving a king piece under the board. I think this represents one of the Lord Ravagers, the chess player. He's got to be the nameless king. So someone is causing destruction and chaos in the background, and the allies don't really know what's going on. Just like Phantilia. We then get a mention of heroes embarking on a grand journey of deliverance. This guy right here is called Phynon, and his description is, the hero remains nameless, not true, and engraves marks of eternity. Well, we know that is wrong because we know his name, but anyways, this is definitely an Epsi of Kazlana, the leader of the 13 Flame Chasers, that well mentions when he speaks to Acheron. His code name is also Deliverance, so it gotta be him. And as the Flame Chaser, he might be chasing the core flame. So was the core flame stolen? Maybe. We then get the narrator saying, I gaze towards the distant future, where the sun will etch the footprint of humanity. So in the future, the sun will be shining. Like right now, this world is probably blanketed in complete darkness. Now, the narrator refers to themselves as I, and they say they can see the distant future. So is the narrator one of the characters able to see into the future? And then we get images of who I assume are the mostly good guys. I believe they are all part of the same faction, or if they're not, they're at least working together towards the common goal of saving their world. And I think they are all being led by the gold weaver Aglaea. Now, all of these people are referred to as the children of humanity and known as the Chrysos heirs. That could be a reference to Chrysos, a minor god that represents gold. The only mention I find of him in classical literature is from Fragment by Pindar, which says Chrysos is a child of Zeus, neither moth nor rust devoureth, but the mind of man is devoured by this supreme possession. I assume Aglaea, as the gold girl, is like the leader. So, are they saying she is evil? I don't think so. I think it's just a name that represents gold, nothing else, okay? Now, there are 4 people we see in the end, and we don't really know who they are. Who are these people? They don't really look like the Fate collab characters. Everyone seen here gotta be part of the Flame Chasers. So I don't think these are villains. There are a couple possibilities. They are all dead, so who cares about designing the character? They aren't actually important, so who cares about them? Or they are very important, so they don't want to spoil anything. Maybe they betrayed the group, who knows? We then get some poetic language. Pluck the gods' core flames, and once more uphold the world. The flame chase is a journey of constant loss, among which even life itself holds little value. Therefore we even cast ourselves into the flame, only to inscribe the opening stroke of the poem of creation. So the good guys are the flame chasers being led in the background by Aglaea, and whereas the man leading the charge is probably Kevin Castellana. So likely we will first meet up with Aglaea in the Holy City, and then much later we will meet up with Kevin in the final battle maybe, or whatever. Assuming everyone isn't just sitting around drinking wine until we show up and then we start fighting, that seems weird to me. They say this is a journey of constant loss, so maybe a lot of these people will die, including Himiko, and it says we need to cast ourselves into the flame to inscribe the opening stroke of creation. So we need to sacrifice ourselves to begin the creation of the new world. We then get an image of infinity. I'm not really sure what this means. Maybe it means they are stuck in a time loop since Cypher's description refers to time as a lie. It could simply represent time being frozen, or it could represent the fact that the world is in Amorphous is cyclical, and that this is not the first time it's been destroyed. So they are trying to sever that loop, represented by the explosion in the middle. Maybe. We then get Sexy Herda talking about random stuff about heroes tossing dices. We then get Elysia from Honkai Impact 3rd sitting in a field talking about how this will be a romantic story. In the Honkai Impact 3rd story, Elysia is the only Hersher, which are beings that destroy humanity, who wants to help humanity. So she conceals her identity, she founds the Flame Chasers, and stores everyone's memories for all eternity as data in the Elysian realm. In the current era, I believe she is dead, and she survives through her simulation in the Elysian realm. So maybe everyone's already dead, but they survive as a simulation. Probably not. In the simulation, Eden, one of the Flame Chasers who represents gold, sacrifices herself to bring Elysia back, which Elysia remarks as romantic. Lesbianism. So is Aglaea going to sacrifice herself to summon all of the heroes, including Elysia, after everyone dies in the final battle against the corruption? Maybe. The other interesting thing is Elysia is not mentioned in the story, and she is sitting in a sunny-looking field while saying this will be a romantic story. So I assume this is not like the epilogue, where we have won. This is right now. The world should be in complete darkness. So is she in a simulation? Is she already dead? Or is there an Elysian field, which in Greek is essentially heaven, a mortal plane covered in darkness, and an underworld? Possibly. The narrator of the story knows what is happening and who all the characters are. So who is this narrator? I'm very curious about that. Is this older Elysia narrating the epic story of all of her fallen comrades and how they saved Amorphous? Or could it also just be Aglaea, who has a god complex and refers to herself in the third person?